Have you ever been playing Path of Exile and thought to yourself,
"Come on, man! That's too easy!"
No? Well, congratulations. You're probably a relatively sane person. However, today we're here to talk about the sick fragment of Chris Wilson's twisted mind.
I'm here with Chris Wilson.
So these are some misprints that I brought.
That brought us a pretty new game mode to Path of Exile. Ruthless. This is only for those who truly want to suffer in a vegan, ethical game mode untouched by people looking for things such as quality of life or my personal least favourite, fun. Just in case you are unaware of what Ruthless entails, let's have a brief look at some of the changes. In Ruthless, the quantity of items dropped has been unique items has been massively reduced as an game of Exile. They cannot be purchased. Many deterministic items like divination cards or Xeria that guarantee cannot be obtained. Still do. Drop rate of crafting currency items has been massively decreased. Master crafting is not available. The crafting bench cannot be accessed, and reforged or the influence mod is removed. Most of the recipes are not available. I am reading all that. I'm happy for you though. Or sorry that happened. Okay, that's a lot of reading, but basically, the key points are, XP gain is significantly reduced, loot dropped is significantly reduced, bosses heal for some life when you die near them, crafting is considerably more limited, even skill gems are much more limited, support gems you can only get from drops. All of these in combination offer a truly ruthless experience, where for a while, if you're unlucky, you can be suffering with a white weapon with no support gems on your main skill. For an even more in-depth experience, I wanted to play an off-meta build like the hipster I am. So I hopped into PoE Ninja of course and searched for my skill. Perfect. There are currently 0 players in Ruthless Softcore playing Reeve, which is exactly what I wanted to play. Apparently they buffed the skill a few times since I last played it, so it might not be quite as painful as I first imagined, but I suppose we'll just see how hard it is. The first thing to note in playing Ruthless is you cannot buy gems from vendors. You can only get them from quest rewards, which actually means we cannot even access Reeve from the vendor as a duelist. Which is crazy to me, but hey. This meant we had to do a mule shadow character. Thank you, you gem-running Chad. You served us well. Say hello to Masochistic Tendency, our fresh character ready to suffer our way through Ruthless, as we're once again reminded about the difficulty of Ruthless. The journey began with some mental preparation lying on the beach, preparing ourselves for the pain and suffering to come before our short beach run, then forgetting whether the chest with the support gem would spawn in Ruthless or not, so heading back to check, and then continuing when unable to find it. Hillock drops easily as he usually does as long as you're not playing Scion. Fighting Hillock as Scion, slowly watching that Z DPS blade fly through him and back as you run out of mana. Anyway, we pick up our Shattering Steel skill and headed over to Hellrake to see if his quest will still reward us with a Quicksilver Flask. To my surprise, it actually did, even though it is of course a nerfed one with a 2-second duration, as opposed to the usual 4 seconds. And also, utility flasks in Ruthless actually do not gain charges while their effect is active. We considered our next gem reward very carefully, and ended up picking up a Blood and Sand gem, which we might end up using with our Reeve setup later on, but it is also a decent gem for quite a few melee setups anyway, with some flexibility. We headed over and took out Granddaddy Crab after a long 3-minute 1v1. Granddaddy Crab actually dropped our first rare, and while it was as disappointing as you can really expect from a level 6 rare, it marked an insignificant event of our first rare. We wore our Torment Veil battered helm with pride on our journey to Mervale. And as we traversed the ledge, we had an interesting drop, Infused Channeling, which is actually a very strong support gem for certain melee skills. Unfortunately not for Reeve, as it's not a channeled skill. But this could help set up a backup plan if Reeve doesn't work out with something like Cyclone or Blade Flurry. Currently I lean towards Blade Flurry as it sounds more fun, but Cyclone is probably stronger overall with the added mobility. We then had a rather uneventful path to Brutus, which we fought for almost 5 consecutive minutes. I was hoping for a good loop layout like in Dead by Daylight for Brutus. I tried using this broken table, but alas it had little effect on him. Brutus dropped our second Ruthless rare item. It's actually great for such a low level rare. Really will be beneficial for us. We got betrayed by our favourite.
Spooky, scary skeletons.
Picked up our lacerate gem. By the way, we're speccing into one hands and shields, as I feel like we're going to need the defensive boost. And once again had a relaxing, uneventful journey to Mervale. We did, however, pick up this claw, which was honestly quite a bait, as I thought the life gain on hit would be very effective for actually living, but I might have been wrong about all that. Now, I'm not sure about anyone else, but usually Mervale is more of a struggle for me than most of the rest of the campaign. Of course, not in Ruthless, so here's how it went. There it is. Our first death. Stupid? Yes. Pointless? Yes. Unexpected? Not entirely. But what is one death on our path to glory in Ruthless? Did we not start our character understanding the sadistic thoughts that haunt Chris Wilson's mind? So we gather our strength and... Perfect. Mervale down. She also dropped us another rare item, which again turned out to be a pretty great rare item. I feel like I get better rare items in Ruthless than I do in normal PoE. Anyway, that marked a quick slaughter of these little fellas and our arrival into the forest encampment. Before we even really begin Act 2, we're already mentally evaluating the bandit rewards. Usually these are competing with a jewel socket, which in normal Trade League it's quite easy to get a jewel equivalent or better with the 2 skill points. However, I feel like in Ruthless, they actually might be pretty solid due to the scarcity of gear. Honestly, I thought the bandit rewards might even be nerfed in Ruthless, but as far as I can tell, they're not. So I decided on Lyra, as I feel like it's probably the only one that's really viable, and I think we are going to lean into crit-based rather than non-crit, as I think there are more gems available for crit-based, which should allow us to have an easier time finding decent or at least usable support gems. Another thing you realise in Act 2 is how the no movement skills is actually going to affect us more than I first thought. As this little tree you would normally just dash over suddenly becomes an impossible obstacle and you have to run around using the tree bridge like a peasant. We quickly dealt with Cretan first, followed by helping Lyra, and then running to kill Oak. I definitely considered Oak just to skip the 5-minute grindfest, slowly beating him down. In hindsight, I should have muled over a frost bomb from a witch mill just for Oak. Just die, Oak. No one likes you. We then opened the way forward from Act 1 and dealt with the spider infestation. After we carefully considered our belt quest reward and ended up picking the leather belt. I considered the heavy belt for the extra strength, but I feel like it's mostly dexterity and intelligence that we're going to be lacking. But this does depend on how we path our skill tree. The next step of course took us to the Chamber of Sins, where we killed this mutant thing and picked up some magic gloves. Actually pretty solid for a magic item and a nice upgrade of life and fire resistance. We also got pretty lucky with a drop in one of our Ascendancy trials, our first ring, and it's actually a pretty decent offensive ring for our first really low level magic ring. Not awful. On the path to the Vaal Oversoul, we were blessed with our first alchemy for this character. I did actually get one on the Mule Shadow character to pick up Reeve before, but hey, it's nice to get another one. We then traversed the ancient pyramid and eventually stood up against the Vaal Oversoul at the peak. Still feels like it's picking up a bit. Felt faster and more fun than against Mervale, thankfully.